It's Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show in store for you today. Improving the Cape's aging bridges is a big job. To find out the latest, we chat with Cape Cod Commission Technical Services Director Glenn Cannon. The Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce is going to host a slew of events this year. We get details with President and CEO Jessica Silver. And we chat with Finance Director Mark Milne about the comprehensive annual financial report on this episode of Barnstable Today. Now let's take a look at today's top headlines. Police Chief Paul McDonald says Barnstable is not one of the most dangerous places to live, despite the town being ranked 93rd in a recent list. Neighborhood Scout used the number of violent crimes to compile the list, but did not take into consideration Barnstable's ballooning summer population.
Then one thing, if you look at Neighborhood Scout, what they put in, they use that plus some sort of algorithm, and I'm not sure what that is, so I'm not sure how they come to a conclusion. But to say that Barnstable is more dangerous than Chicago or Compton, California, or Los Angeles, California, or New York City is ridiculous. So they're saying it's safer to be in Chicago than the Main Street Osterville or Main Street Cotuta, West Barnstable. You know, it makes no sense whatsoever. But they do have a caveat. I mean, they clearly said that on their website, it says Neighborhood Scout does warn against the skewing of numbers in tourist areas, which means they're basing their numbers solely on the census of the town of Barnstable. They do not take into consideration the shoulder season. They do not take into account the season where our population easily goes up to 150 to 160,000. So these numbers are far from accurate. And if they're going to put out an article like that, they really have to do their homework to get the information correct, because this could affect a lot of people. It could affect the Chamber of Commerce, could affect business in downtown Hyannis. This really could have an adverse effect against the town, which is totally unfair.
McDonald says crime in Barnstable is actually on the decline, noting there were a total of 1,209 violent crimes in 2015 and only 894 in 2016. December is another strong month for the Barnstable real estate market. Register of Deeds Jack Mead says he saw increases across the board when compared to the same time last year.
It was we did have a strong month, as you mentioned. We were up almost 4% in terms of the volume of activity from over a year ago. As well, the total value was up nearly 5%, 4.7 to be precise. The end result was that the median value of property sales for the month of December was up 1.8% from a year ago. So nice, strong, solid month, which followed up and ended up being a nice, strong, solid year for real estate here in Barnstable County.
Then one thing, if you look at Neighborhood Scout, what they put in, they use that plus some sort of algorithm, and I'm not sure what that is, so I'm not sure how they come to a conclusion. But to say that Barnstable is more dangerous than Chicago or Compton, California, or Los Angeles, California, or New York City is ridiculous. So
Mead says January and February are often slow months for the real estate market, but hopes to continue to see such great numbers. The Barnstable Police Department is looking for a few good men and women. The department is now hiring 10 community service officers. Those officers will help patrol Main Street Hyannis during the busy summer months. Community service officers are paid $17 an hour and work 40 hours a week. To learn more about those positions, you can visit townofbarnstable.us and click through to the employment page. The Water Resources Advisory Committee hopes to utilize a computer tool developed by the Cape Cod Commission. The tool will help the committee as it works to develop a wastewater resource management plan. The committee will schedule workshops to use the tool to help find the best solutions to reduce nitrogen loading in Barnstable's waterways. The Water Resources Advisory Committee meets tonight at 5:30 in the Town Hall hearing room. Well, up next, we chat with Cape Cod Commission's Technical Services Director, Glenn Cannon. It is almost roadwork season, really, if we think about it, Glenn. Coming up on the spring, thinking about a lot of transportation projects. With me to discuss some of those, Technical Services Director for the Cape Cod Commission, Glenn Cannon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Want to get an update, if we can, on there's been a lot of discussion. A meeting was held not too long ago about the Canal Area Transportation Project. Where do we stand on that project?
Sure. With the Canal Area Transportation Study, a project that MassDOT has undertaken, I would say a big development in that project right now. If before they had talked about a P3, a public-private partnership, and really talking about a new bridge with tolls, and that was a big item on it. A third highway bridge over the canal with tolls. They really seem to have backed off of that. and that right now is not officially on the table. Doesn't mean they might revisit it later on, but they really backed off of that. And they've also now brought in the Army Corps of Engineers, which is a big development. So the two highway bridges and the railroad bridge are owned and maintained by the Highway Department. By Army Corps of Engineers. So MassDOT is now really looking for the Army Corps of Engineers to step forward and take care of their own bridges and start looking at replacement. So this is a big development. It does slow down the time frame. I'll tell you that much. The P3 project could have been on a much faster time frame. But in reality, I think at the end of the day, it's the right way to go about it, because even if you built a new bridge, and this really kind of never made any sense to me, if you built a brand new bridge, you're building a brand new bridge next to an 80-year-old bridge. You're almost like putting a Band-Aid on the problem. That 80-year-old bridge has to be addressed. And if they were going to build a third bridge, they would still have either the Sagamore or the Bourne standalone, bridge without any help. So they had to be addressed. Now the Army Corps has a different process. You're talking about significant money. We just had a meeting at our Joint Transportation Committee. That's the committee of 15 DPW directors from Cape Cod talking about transportation. The Army Corps of Engineers was there. They talked about $400 million per bridge. Now,
wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're really talking about numbers that are way out there. Quite honestly, right. If that went to $1 billion to replace two bridges, $500 million each, I wouldn't blink an eye. I always think this is something we have to talk about in transportation. It's the cost of infrastructure.
Well, and then
it's astronomical.
I think the tricky part too is that there aren't necessarily the funds available
Correct.
for these really costly projects. So if you're saying the Army Corps of Engineers is now being sort of pressured to upgrade the bridges or maintain them in a better way, that's going to be really costly for them. How is that going to shake out?
Correct. Right now they have a separate study going on, a major rehabilitation study, just to look at the bridges right now, and what they're doing is a total financial assessment of what those bridges really cost. Not just the maintenance work that they're putting into them, and we know this maintenance work is happening more and more frequently all the time now, but also the impact on the residents. Because when they close down one of those lanes, it has an impact on everybody on Cape Cod. From the business owners whose deliveries aren't coming, their customers aren't coming, to people who have medical appointments. And I hear it all the way out to P-Town. There are people who are getting in their car and normally driving to Boston who are thinking to themselves, okay, it's a 3-hour car ride, right? I have to leave 3 hours before my appointment. Now it's a 5-hour car ride. They are now missing their medical appointments because of that work. So they're taking all that into consideration, and then based on that study, and that's a very important step. That study actually comes out in June. They will make the determination on what they're going to do next. Do they start pursuing bridge replacement, or are they going to maintain those bridges, until the next round of, who knows, 20 years, 30 years, when they make a determination that, it's costing them more money now. So that's a big study that comes out in June, and we'll have to see where that determination comes to. And then even that, if they do talk about bridge replacement, what this gentleman said is now they have to go back, they're talking about going back to Congress for authorization for that funding. There's no line item amount that they have for new bridges in their budget. I believe he said the Army Corps of Engineers nationwide has a $5 billion budget for everything that they do. So, to take $1 billion out of that, 20% of their budget for two bridges on Cape Cod, as important as they are to us, it just is not within their yearly annual budget. So they have to go back to Congress, look for that funding for those two big bridge replacements. So that is the biggest news. I would say also that MassDOT is still working on the 4 connections and then the roads in between. That project is still moving forward, so it's moving forward separately. Talking about replacing the Bourne Rotary, Exit 1 off of Route 6, a relocation of that, talking about that. Fixing Belmont Circle, which is on the mainland side of the Bourne Bridge. And really, if you will, Sagamore Rotary Replacement Project, that one still is in good shape. No major changes over there. Also talking about upgrading like Scenic Highway and then Sandwich Road. So still significant projects going on here. I can tell you, replacing the Bourne Rotary, one of the reasons why rotaries don't get replaced as often as they should, because you're probably talking $50 million just to replace one rotary.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just astronomical. If you look
And
at this,
that's a state project then as well,
Correct.
because that's a local project here versus looking at the federal government for funding. So even more tough, I would think, to get funding for that kind of costly project.
it will be tough. There'll be a battle to replace that. So that's one thing we really have to look at. I think maybe a couple of projects that are a little bit lower cost that you might actually see. That Exit 1 relocation. It has, I think, more impact on the residents down in the Sagamore area there.
That
But
is an interesting off point. You kind of have to drive through neighborhoods
Yes.
to get to the road that you need to go to the store. So
Right.
it's an interesting offshoot there.
it is, and I think I think that would probably move forward as a separate project. They really have to step into that neighborhood. One thing that's happened also now, there's a little bit more of a business community down there that's kind of feeding off the highway traffic. So to take all that highway traffic away, now you're really impacting them. So there has to be more study of that area, but that's something that could move forward. They're also talking about a ramp that goes from Scenic Highway, which is on the mainland side, up to the Bourne Bridge, and going straight onto Route 25. So you don't go through that Belmont Circle. It makes a lot of sense. It removes a lot of traffic from that Belmont Circle. It also is, in the transportation world, maybe a cheaper fix. And I mean, $10 million. So it could very well be something that you do see move forward coming out of this study that happens before applied bridge replacements, and to relieve some of the pressure. So that's one of the things you have to try to relieve as much pressure and maximize the capacity of those bridges as much as possible. So those three projects really would do that. They'd maximize the capacity of the bridges. Doesn't make the bridges better. Certainly doesn't make them any better for pedestrians or bicyclists. But it will help relieve some
of
traffic.
the vehicle traffic.
Exactly.
Well, I'm really interested. I cannot wait to see what the study the Army Corps of Engineers releases in June. We'll really look forward to seeing that. Thank you for coming in and telling us all about a lot of these projects and how they're planning on dealing with some of our congestion issues near our bridges. We really appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you for having me, Sarah.
Our guest today, Cape Cod Commission Technical Services Director Glenn Cannon. So much more to come on Barnstable Today. The Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce is getting ready for its busy season. To learn more about this year's chamber events, we chat with President and CEO Jessica Silver. The Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce has a series of events throughout the year, some of which are extremely popular events. To talk more about that, we have President and CEO Jessica Silver joining us now on the phone. Jessica, the first event coming up this year is going to be the Tour de Barnstable. Tell me a little bit about this event.
Well, the Tour de Barnstable is certainly a new event for us. We were approached last year to see if we could partner with Barnstable Land Trust and Sea Sports and put this event on. It's a 38-mile ride through the villages of Barnstable, which I think is amazing. And then there's also a shorter distance, so if you're not a huge long-distance bike rider, there is a 10-mile ride. So it's a really great event. And as I said, the two beneficiaries of the event are the Barnstable Land Trust, which is super important to the town of Barnstable, and of course the Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, wonderful. Now, this event has gone on for a little while before you got involved. Is that right?
Well, this is actually in its third year, so it's kind of a new event. This is the second time that I've heard of it, but I thought it was a great partnership for the three of us to get together and really enhance this event and get more riders.
Yeah, wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about the Father's Day car show. Of course, Father's Day this year is June 18th. This is a huge event. How many people does this typically bring in to Hyannis?
In the past, we've had about 80,000 spectators and about 400 participants with their cars. So it's a huge event. We shut down Main Street. We expanded the route last couple of years, so we've gone from Ocean Street all the way to Stevens Street. It's a great event. It's a great family event. We have things happening on the Village Green. We have a night before where we have a VIP reception for those that participate. So we have a mini car show right on one of the side streets in Hyannis, and that's sponsored usually by Rockland Trust. So it's a great family event. It's lots of people. It happens pretty much, the good portion of the day, so 8:30 to 2:30-ish. It's a great event. We get everybody involved, which is nice.
Yeah, I think it's a tradition too for so many families to come and celebrate Father's Day. Just walking up and down Main Street, it is, I think, by far the best, one of the best events on Main Street in Hyannis. Want to talk to you. You know, another thing you guys have done recently. I'm not sure if this is going to be the second year or the third year for this. I think third, but the Vintage Motorcycle Show is taking place in Barnstable Village, which is really cool. Talk to me a little bit about this event.
So this event, our Vintage Motorcycle Show, is modeled right after Car Show. And what we do is we close down a portion of Route 6A in Barnstable Village. So we changed the scenery just a little bit. It's in September, right in front of the courthouse, which is, I mean, if you haven't seen the pictures are just amazing. It's beautiful. The scenery, the change in the change in the season. But what we do is we get some vintage motorcycles to come down, and we display them, and we have people kind of, you know, very, very similar to Car Show. It's a nice family event. Last year we had some custom motorcycles, so hoping that we can have something special again this year. But another great event, another family event, and we just moved it from a different village, which is nice.
Oh, where did you move it to?
Well, it's in Barnstable Village, not Hyannis.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying you moved the car show from Barnstable Village. Misunderstanding on my part. Yeah, very exciting event. Want to talk to you too. This is a newer event you guys have been doing, a road race. Talk to me a little bit about that road race.
So the road race we just started last year. We came across some information that there was a need in our community that our high school students weren't getting enough food to eat when they were not in school. So on weekends and evenings and things like that, they relied heavily on their meals in the morning and lunchtime. So we partnered with Barnstable School District, and we found that we were going to create a sort of a food pantry, but not necessarily a food pantry. We want to call it something a little different, so we're working on the name. But what we do is we collect food. We've also helped sponsor their food pantry, for lack of another name, in the high school. So it's great. So we're helping to feed those kids that aren't getting enough food to eat when they're not in school.
Yeah, it's so sad to think that some kids, their only healthy meals are those at school. So thank you so much for joining me today, telling me all about these events. Before I let you go, tell me a little bit, what's your web address if anyone wants to find out some more information about some of these events?
It's super easy. It's hyannis.com.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Jessica, and look forward to chatting with you again in the near future.
Thank you. You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
My guest today is CEO and President of the Hyannis, Greater Hyannis Chamber of Commerce. The town's comprehensive annual financial report is now available. To find out more about what you can glean from that report, we chat with Finance Director Mark Milne. And the comprehensive annual financial report is recently released to residents and posted on the town's website. To learn more about the document and why it's so important to have, we have with us Finance Director Mark Milne. Mark, tell us, why is this a requirement for a town to publish its annual financial report?
Sure, Sarah. There are three reasons behind the reason why we have to do this. One is it's a state law that we have to conduct an annual financial audit of the town's records. Two, we have bond covenants that we must abide by, and as well as federal grant requirements require an annual audit, specifically as it relates to federal grant programs, as well as our charter also has a stipulation in it that the town must conduct an annual financial audit as well.
Yeah, it was interesting looking through the document and seeing that auditor's note come up. Didn't really understand that they had such a big part in the comprehensive report.
Yes, we prepare these financial statements based off of our financial records internally here, and then we give those to an independent outside auditor who comes in and they review our internal controls, they review all of the backup documentation, that supports the amounts in the financial statements, and then they have to express an opinion, which you're probably familiar with hearing, the auditor's opinion on a financial statement, and that can be found on page 17 of the document. And I would just like to point out that the auditor's opinion is an unmodified opinion, which means it's a clean opinion, which means that they have no reason to believe that the amounts presented in these financial statements do not present fairly the town's financial position as of June 30th. So being a clean opinion means that there's no material misstatements.
Wonderful. And, we should mention, too, your department and the town of Barnstable has actually received an award, I think, for the past 13 years on the budget presentation. Is that right?
Yeah, the budget presentation as well as this comprehensive annual financial report. We've been participating in the program where both those documents are reviewed by an independent group of individuals to make sure that they adhere to standards established by the professional associations for preparing those two documents, and so yeah, we've been doing that for over a decade now.
And so much interesting information can be found in this document. What do you think is maybe the most convenient or useful thing for residents if they're going to view it? I mean, I can imagine that some elected officials would be looking at this, maybe our town councilors, but what can residents glean from this report?
I would say for the best way to review this report, if you're a resident, would be to read the letter of transmittal along with the management's discussion and analysis sections in the document. That's where we talk about the change from year to year and what the significant financial events that took place that resulted in a change in various numbers in the financial statements. If you just look at the numbers on the financial statements, they're really not going to tell you anything. It's the story behind the numbers that help people understand what's happening, and that story can be found in the management's discussion and analysis along with the letter of transmittal.
What are some of the things that would be included there that would maybe make an impact on our financial situation here in the town of Barnstable?
One of the things we highlight is the unfunded liabilities associated with employee benefits. The two biggest ones, of course, pensions and health insurance for our employees. As you know, we provide we have a defined benefit retirement program. And that has a cost associated with it. And right now, that retirement system that we have is only funded at about 58%. And so, therefore, there's a large liability that's hanging out there when it comes to the county retirement system, and that's typical of many of these public retirement systems. There's been a lot of stories written about these systems across the country over the past decade, and it continues to be an area of concern. And it's a $94 million liability as far as the town of Barnstable goes. And there's an effort to fund that. To get that fully funded by the year 2037. But in addition, we also have health insurance, an unfunded liability associated with health insurance. When you retire, we provide a health insurance benefit to all our retirees, and that's about $130 million liability. And so those liabilities, recent accounting statements have brought those liabilities onto the front of the financial statements here, and so there's a lot more information being included in this financial report in regards to those liabilities.
Yeah, and an interesting report it is. If our residents in town want to view it, they can click on it on the town's website. It's on the front page there in recent news. Where else can they find this report?
That's really well. They can come to my office and ask, to review a copy of it. We don't print a lot of hardbound copies of this report because it is 150 pages long. So the best place to view it, of course, is the town's website, where you can download it as a PDF document and save it to your files, your hard drive, and read it at your leisure.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Mark, for telling us all about the report, why it's necessary and required. And I would look forward to chatting with you again in a few weeks.
Okay, Sarah.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Our guest, of course, Finance Director Mark Milne. Now let's find out what's happening around town in today's community calendar. The Arts Foundation of Cape Cod is looking for 3 interns for the summer. The internship is paid and offers participants a chance to get real-world experience in event production, nonprofit operations, and marketing. The job begins in late May and runs through August. For more information, you can contact the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod. Local dog trainer Matt White will talk about his experience training military and law enforcement dogs at the Cotuit Library tonight. White has been training dogs for more than 20 years. He'll talk about how dogs can play a significant role in our world, and he'll even bring a 4-legged friend along with him. The event is free tonight at 6:30 at the Cotuit Library. Time now for a complete list of this week's board, committee, and commission meetings. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with another great show for you. We'll chat with State Representative Tim Whalen. We'll talk with Town Councilor Sarah Cushing and Town Manager Mark Ells. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.